Live. Hey everyone, this is Carlos Martinez coming to you live from my home in Chicago. I hope wherever you are, whether you're watching this live or the replay, that you're having an amazingly blessed day doing what you love to do with those that you love. So folks, I'm here to talk to you about an amazing video, amazing training that I've seen just recently, okay? But it's going to talk about like 97, like this test, and 97% of people fail this test. And it was pretty eye-opening. But then once you start seeing the video, when I get into some of these details, you're going to be like, hey, that totally makes sense. So, but anyway, I was watching this video with the amazing Joe Dispenza, and I've been really watching a lot of his videos recently. And it was just on YouTube, and it wasn't that long of a video. I think it was maybe, I don't know, 15 minutes long or so. But you know, he talked about, you know, like 97% of this people you know, just failing this test. And what this test was, all right, with this, hey, what's up, Phil Thomas? Thank you for joining my live. You're awesome. You're awesome. Thank you so much. So anyway, you know, 97% of people failed this test. And when I was watching this video with Dr. Joe Dispenza, the test was, you know, you'd look at it, it was like pretty simple, okay? And it was a map, a world map, okay, kind of like flat out there. And the world map, the question was, which country is bigger, Europe or South America? All right, Europe or South America. And it had, you know, Europe highlighted in yellow, and it had South America highlighted in yellow. Well, the way that the map was created, it looked like Europe was bigger, okay? And the thing was, what he pointed out was, hey, look, this map was made by, you know, Germany back in the 1930s. And as you know, who was around during the 1930s during that time, right? You know, was Hitler, right? So he created this map to make, you know, Europe much bigger. But then when you look at the real map, right, what a real map's supposed to look like, South America is much bigger than Europe. And the whole point of this is perception. What he was talking about, the whole point of this exercise is perception, because remember, the perception back then amongst the people that were looking at that map, you know, from Hitler and his regime, was that Europe was much bigger than South America. And it really has nothing to do with any of that. It's just really how perception can be created by the environment. That was the whole, like the whole premise of this. Like our beliefs and who we are is created by our perceptions, and our perceptions are created by our environment. Okay, so yes, the question then comes like, so where do we get our perceptions from? Okay, and he said there's three things. There's three places where we get our perceptions from. Because remember, this is like really powerful, right? Because this really affects everything that we do. Because in terms of, you know, how we see the world, how we see things, how we see ourselves, really comes from perception. So we've got to change those perceptions, right? That's the whole point. But we're gonna get into that in just a moment here. But so where do our perceptions come from? Right? Our perceptions come from three places. Our perceptions come from three places. Number one, they come from instincts. First of all, number one is instinct. These are things that we're naturally born with. Okay, and he gives an example in there. So an example is like, and I don't know if you guys knew this, and I kind of knew, but I didn't. Right? That we are naturally, when a baby is brand new and like just newborn, a baby can naturally swim. So if a baby, like sometimes you see these moms, right? These moms, expectant moms that they're delivering the baby in a swimming pool, right? Like a heated kind of swimming pool kind of thing. And the baby's born, and the baby's like born floating and swimming, right? So but then what happens, right? What happens? So why is it then that a baby then needs to learn, or as a young boy or a young girl, you know, 2 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, whatever, why does a young boy or young girl then need to learn how to swim if instinctively, right? Instinctively, they know how to swim like as babies, right? So what happens is, so this is where number two comes in, right? Remember, so where do we get our perceptions from? Number one, instinct. Right, there are things that we're instinctively born with, right? So putting our hand in a fire, we automatically feel the heat, right? And we probably even burn ourselves, so we pull it back, right? So we pull it back. So those are instincts. So one thing, so our perceptions are shaped by, number one, our instincts. Number two, all right, And number two is the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind, this is where our learned habits are created, right? In our subconscious mind, this is where our learned habits. So let's take the example of the baby, right? Of the baby that instinctively knows how to swim, but right. So what happens when the baby, when the baby is like in the bathtub, or when the baby is, is of walking age, 1 year old, 2 year old, whatever the case may be. And as the baby gets near the water, right. If you happen to be close to a swimming pool, or, you got the bath running and, you got the water running in the bathtub, or you're by the beach or whatever. Oh my goodness, there goes the baby. Watch the baby, So we fearfully tell the baby, no, what, the baby's going to drown. So what happens? Now, this is learned behavior in our subconscious, our learned habits. So the baby starts to learn from the parents that water is bad. They can't swim. And so as a result, they create a fear of water, until they learn how to swim. They got this little fear of water. But that's something that was learned from the parents. So the subconscious mind is where our learned habits come from. But instinctively, had the parents not gotten in the way from the get-go, right? From the baby was a baby, the baby instinctively knows how to swim. Okay, so again, that number one is in instincts. Number two is the subconscious mind, where our perceptions are created. Okay, where we get our perceptions from. And number three is the conscious mind. Okay, the conscious mind. This is where all the creativity happens. Right, so this is super duper powerful. So this is where all the creativity happens. Okay, and that's where all the growth happens. So what happens is, if we were raised to believe that, hey, there's only a certain amount of money in the world, right? Or we were raised to believe, hey, you got the only way to make it in life is get good grades in school, okay? Eventually go to college, take on school debt, go get a job, and work at this job as best as you can, and save money, so on and so forth. So all these things are learned behaviors that have been formed in our subconscious mind, and we just have to now so is that, and there's nothing wrong with having a job. So if that's the route you want to go, more power to you. But if you want the freedom, if you want financial independence, if you want time freedom, if you want location freedom, so on and so forth, we've got to start in our conscious mind, not our subconscious, right? In our conscious mind, we need to start creating new habits. And how do we create these new habits? We create them by what we repeatedly do. We have to retrain our minds. Right, you have to retrain our mind. So I found this super duper powerful, and as a matter of fact, he goes on to say that what we do not use enough of every day, is our consciousness, right? 97% more of our life is controlled by the habit of our conscious mind. The question is in development. What environment shapes, let's talk about, for example, the fetal development. What environment shapes fetal development? And the fate of the cell is controlled by the environment, which the seller, which in turn is where the cell lives, right? So what environment controls the development of the fetus? Well, the mother's environment. So if you think about, so when a mom, he goes on to talk about, with the mom. So when a mom is pregnant, okay, a woman is pregnant, and she goes to see the obstetrician, okay, the obstetrician in general just kind of asks her three main questions. All right. Number one, are you eating well? Number two, are you taking vitamins and minerals? And number three, are you exercising? Because the whole logic behind medicine is that genes, the human genes, biological genes, creates the baby. So it's almost like if they're saying the mother has no effect on the baby, it's only what she eats and that she exercises, which is completely not true. All right, now science and medicine is changing, right? Because now we know that the mother's emotional state, right, her emotional state, like where she's at, also affects the baby. So for example, if she gets into an argument with the father of the baby, the husband or whatever, she gets in an argument with the husband, and that emotion transfers onto the fetus, right? So that emotion transfers onto the fetus. So the whole point of this is that the environment that we grow up around, the environment that we live in, affects our perception. right? And that our perception, right, that we grow up with eventually becomes a part of our subconscious mind, and it ends up being what we do every single day. So what do we got to do in the end? In the end, what do we have to do? We've got to, in the conscious mind, retrain our subconscious. And as we retrain our subconscious, okay, that's where we're going to start to experience results and growth and so on and so forth. So if you look at, for example, the 4 minute mile with, I think it was a Roger Bannister, right? So, and I forget what years it was, maybe the 1930s, right? 1940s, but no one, right? So what the perception that was formed was that running a 4 minute mile was impossible. It's just never been done. Like, no way. There's no way that a human can run a 4 minute mile. So that was, guess what? That self-imposed limitation, that self-imposed belief, that perception growing up was, well, that's just something that no one can do. No one can run a 4 minute mile. But that changed. All of that changed when Roger Bannister was the first one to run the 4 minute mile. Like, wow, wait a second. It can be done, right? Like, for years, for decades, no one was able to, no one can think beyond, think beyond running a 4 minute mile until Roger Bannister. And now, since then, countless people have done, like, so a 4 minute mile, like, I don't want to say everybody does it, but I mean, it's very, very attainable. Tons of people have done it. So what changed? Well, the only thing that changed was changing the perception, right? So Roger Bannister knew, like, yeah, a 4 minute mile can be done. And I'm going to train myself. I'm going to train my mind. I'm going to train my body. I'm going to train my thinking. Okay. I'm going to change my eating habits. I'm going to change my habits every single day until I get to the point where I can run this 4 minute mile. And so let's take this into everyday life, right? Let's take this into everyday life. So if you're struggling with, like, well, you know what? I just can't, if you're growing an online business, and let's translate this into growing an online business, in particular a network marketing business, right? Like, well, I just can't reach out to people because they're going to say no to me, right? And all I get is no, and I don't ever rank advance. So guess what? Those self-limiting beliefs, those self-imposed beliefs, they're in your subconscious. You've been trained that way. So the only way to get out of that is to retrain your mind by doing daily activities that are going to get you to there, right? And with Zig Ziglar, Zig Ziglar always used to say, if you want to change your future, change your habits. If you want to change your future, change your habits. And how do you change your habits? By changing your perception of things and what you do every single day. And it goes back to, one of my favorite people, authors that I love to read about, with, Dr. Wayne Dyer, right? When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And that is so true. So anyway, guys, again, 97% of people failed that test about the maps, right? What map was bigger? Was it South America, or was it Europe? And really, again, the perceptions of the people were changed because the maps were distorted, and people ended up believing what they saw. And you can relate that to the news today, right? Everything you see on the news, it's just like so distorted that people start to believe what they're seeing in the news when it's not really reality. So the end result is that our perceptions of things controls the belief, and it controls the biology, and it controls who we are. So we got to start working on changing those perceptions, which then in turn change the beliefs, right? And then in turn change our habits and our results, so on and so forth, right? So if you guys got value from this, please share this out with other people. And folks, again, it's just so amazing the things that we can do if we just take the time to learn about it and just take control of our life and control of our mind. So you guys are amazing. Thank you so much for being a blessing. Okay. I love you guys so much. Until the next live. Bye for now. Love you guys. Talk to you soon. Bye, guys.